How's it going, everybody? Today, we have a special treat here on the second channel. It's going to be some additional thoughts, kind of into the making, sort of let's call it a reflection, I guess, on the Monopoly piece that I put out a few days ago. I might go back and do this kind of reflection with the other 11 pieces I've done before this. But I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet because I don't have the Final Cut projects for those videos anymore. Because what happens is when I finish a video, I delete the project and then I start the next one. And the reason why I do that is just because I just don't have the storage space to store all of those projects. I keep usually most of the footage and stuff like that, but I never can keep the original project. So I have the final export and then I have the stuff that went into it, but I do not have the actual Final Cut projects because I just don't have the storage space or something like that, and I don't think it's necessarily worth it. Although with something like the South Park video, I kind of wish I had that project now, but it is what it is. Anyway, so the Monopoly video, here it is. Here's the No, I can't flip the camera to do it this way. Here's that project. This is what it looks like in Final Cut. It's a good time. It's weird because I have Premiere up here exporting something else because I have to use Premiere for certain things. But this is the project, so it's a good time. Got a lot of different layers in certain parts, like especially up here when I was doing the individual piece business. That was a lot of different layers. The real cool thing about Final Cut is that you have basically infinite layers. So in something like Premiere, they have different tracks, is the terminology, and that it makes sense because back when they were doing like the OG analog video editing before you had like a computer to do it, you would be laying stuff on top of each other and figuring it out. So that's where the terms like B-roll, for example, or VO or things like that, like those terms originated from when people had to actually manually do this with physical tape. But now we have fancy editors that do the work for us. So Premiere, you have track numbers basically, and you're organizing things based on that. Where in Final Cut, everything is tied to the main storyline, is what they call it. And I find this useful because in a voiceover heavy work like this or anything like that, really the audio drives whatever the video is. So in this case, it's entirely my VO or VO or narration or whatever you want to call it. In other cases, it could be more like SOTs, more like sound on tape or like interviews or whatever's going on. So anyway, I don't know why I went on that tangent. But anyway, discussing this video and what I put into it and how it was made and all that business. So yeah. So the idea for this video came about through a random conversation I had in Discord at one point with people. And it was just kind of like we're talking about I just noticed something on my lip, and I just wanted to do that. There was something, I think we were talking about Monopoly or something like that. It was like, oh, here's this like strategy in Monopoly that like you won't win every time, right? But like it gives you an advantage in the game over other players. And that sort of inspired me, just like me explaining that to people. And I've explained that to other people other times before. Like when I play Monopoly with people, why I always go for the orange properties, for example. Which sometimes when we're playing by like house rules or something like that will bite me in the butt, right? But like, when I play Monopoly, I always go for the orange properties. And so explaining that to people why that's the case sort of inspired me to go into more research and kind of figure out more stuff. And through that, I kind of pulled out and sort of figured out a lot of things about Monopoly that I didn't know about before. I didn't know about the Landlord's Game. I didn't know about the history behind Monopoly. And I didn't know that it was sort of designed to be broken. I didn't know any of those things before I started writing. And so it was interesting because it's like, wow, I know this dominant strategy with Monopoly. I know that the house rules kind of break it, but that's the point. And the fact that that was the point just blew my mind. And so I just immediately started writing, and the videos came to be within the span of like 2 days, the script. And the script didn't actually change much from when I first wrote it to when it the final version, just because I kind of had everything I needed once I did the research and kind of it was just sort of my findings, it wasn't super like opinionated or I needed to explain an opinion or something like that. It was like, this is the strategy, this is the history, this is this. And so, yes, like this isn't that video isn't like objective fact or anything like that, but I think it was kind of an easier writing process just because of the fact that I'm not trying to explain this feeling that I have. I'm not trying to explain a feeling. It's more like, well, here's just what it is. And so when the people that I sent the script to were looking over the script, the biggest thing was like, this might be hard to like, I don't fully understand this, but I hope that the final video will make this more clear. And so when I get all that input, then I'm like, crap, I need to figure out a way to make this visually explain things really, really well. And so that's why this video took so long. The reason why this video took so long is because I needed to figure out how to visually represent the things I was talking about on screen. And I learned a lot through that process. And I think this, in terms of visual edits, is the best video I've made. By a long shot. And that's for a number of reasons. The first reason is I learned motion graphics. And motion graphics are great. I love using Apple Motion. I enjoy it. I also learned After Effects while I'm at it, and After Effects is useful for different reasons. I don't think it's as much of a thing where it's like a personal preference between Motion and After Effects. I think that they both can do things, but After Effects is generally, I would say, a better and more diverse program. Motion just has a bit of a better workflow with Final Cut. But After Effects, I think, is the more powerful program of the two on that one. Pretty cut and dry. But I do enjoy using Apple Motion. I think there are some things that you can do in Apple Motion a bit easier than After Effects. So I used that throughout the entire video. So I use the full Apple video editing suite, basically, because I use Compressor to export, I use Final Cut to edit, and I used the Motion for motion graphics. And it was the first time I used the full suite like that. So that was interesting. But anyway, so it was kind of a matter of figuring out how to visually convey the things I was talking about on the screen. And so the first thing is that I realized I needed to film a lot. And the reason why is because I'm not talking about an album where there's music videos. I'm not talking about a movie where it's just the movie. I'm not talking about a video game where it's just the game. And that's what I've historically done for past videos. Because I'm talking about like a concept. Not even with the reviews video, I was talking about a concept, right? And so I needed to find footage that matched that concept. Here, I was talking about something that isn't an audio visual. It isn't a digital thing. It isn't a thing I can download and put into the project. I need to capture that experience myself and put it into the project. So a lot of video recording went into this guy. And the weakness with that is that my cameras are very limited. I have this phone that I'm recording this on right now, which is a Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Before that, I had an iPhone 6 Plus, I believe. It was a 6 Plus or something like that, 6S maybe. I believe it was the 6 Plus. And the video on that wasn't that good. The video on the Note 8 is certainly a lot better. And then the main camera that I used for this thing was a Canon PowerShot ELPH HS360 or something like that. I bought it a little while ago. I bought it like 2 years ago, I want to say, just as I was doing 3 minutes. So this is probably 3 years ago then. But just as I was starting to do the 3-minute business is when I got that camera. And so that it's not great. There's very little manual camera options on it. It doesn't do well in low light at all, which is why every single end bit or credits is grainy. All of them just are grainy just because of where I record them, how I record them. They're just always grainy. The good news is that when I captured the board with the light directly above it, it did capture the board very well, and it was very well lit, and it was really good there. The only issue that I had in terms of filming, which Scott brought up the second he watched it because he knows a lot more about actual filming than I do, is the shadows. Like immediately when you're watching some of this, and you may not pick it up if you're not a film guy, but the shadows on some of these are really, really bad in that they just sort of dominate the shot at a lot of times, especially in the shot where it's me and Karima playing the game. Our shadows just kind of cover the board at some points. And thankfully, that shot of us playing the game, we literally just played the game and I just recorded like 20 minutes of it. And I did that because I needed something to cut back to. Because usually when I have a video, it's like I needed something to cut back to. So like in a video game or whatever, I just cut to some footage of the game in the area I'm talking about. With a movie, I cut to a relevant part of the movie. And music, I cut to a music video, right? Like in the Queens of the Stone Age one, I could just cut to any performance of them and probably be pretty safe, right? If I don't have anything else to put, I can put them performing, and because the video's about them, and it works. With Monopoly, I don't have that. Because I have to capture everything myself. So the footage I chose to go back to was that footage of us playing the game, which is why it appears so often throughout the video. It's because when I need to bring something on screen, like a graphic or something like that, then I can blur that in the background, bring that in. So and if I do a video talking like a reflection on the on reviews thing, then I might go into this a little bit. But basically, that video was kind of one of the first ones where it was like I started to really dive into layering when you're editing stuff, because before that it was very much I edited more sequentially, meaning that it was just, okay, here's a thing, what piece of footage do I put there, put that there, done, and that's all I did. But then the next level above that in terms of editing is then one, how can you explain this better than just showing the footage, right? And then the second thing is, how do you move from one idea to the next? And in a lot of cases, I didn't do that at all up until, I would say, the Queens of the Stone Age video. But this video, I think, did that quite well. And so one of the other things that made this editing process take really long is that I was like, when I had the shots of the footage of like me opening the game board and setting up the game, like when I edited that first minute of the Monopoly video, of like the first minute where I opened Monopoly, set up the game, and then cut to Yahtzee, and then put away the game, and then pull out Stratego. Like that whole business, I edited it like, I want to say 2-3 weeks ago. And the second I did that bit at the beginning of the video, I kind of knew the style the video needed to take. And that was very smooth. Everything flows into the next because it's sort of like I'm talking you through this and explaining this with you sitting at the table with me. So there are a lot of cuts in that video that you probably didn't even notice because it was like anytime I was explaining something, my hand would move in time with what I'm talking about. And usually there was a whole gap in there where nothing was happening that I just cut out, so that way my hand movements would time out with the thing that I was talking about. So when I'm setting up like the board, for example, like if you scroll down here, like if we zoom in, you can see that there's a lot of like small cross dissolves and business going on there, when this is supposed to look like one cohesive movement throughout the board, right? Me setting up the whole thing until we get to the me cheating picture, right? And that's all one cohesive movement, and it's all from one take of a video. It's just that I shortened it by cutting out bits that that didn't work with the timing of the video. So that was an experience doing that. And then the deal was that when you're like transitioning from one idea to the next, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do a hard cut because there's going to be 0 hard cuts in this entire video. And you can look, there are 0 hard cuts in this entire video. Except for the end, obviously the cut to the end. So like, for example, like here, right? So like, this is just one example. But like with Stratego, I'm showing the end of the thing, right? So I have setting up the board. I rewound with an effect. So I made it look like it was rewinding back so I could show the setup of the other side, right? I zoom into the other side. And then at the end of it, I do a ripple effect into the pan of the final board. So it's kind of like you're flashing forward to when this is happening. So it's sort of like it was just picking transitions, creating transitions in some cases, and doing things that way. It would be a perfectly flowing piece. And it was something I've never really done before. And so I learned so much just through that process. And it was about bringing stuff down. It's like, how is this going to enter the frame? How is it going to leave the frame? It's no longer just put it there. no longer just pop in. It's how is it going to get there? How's it going to leave? Let's move the pieces. Let's move the elements throughout, so that way your eyes, as you're watching it, continue to flow with the video as well. So there's no point where you're like, new idea, because this isn't a new idea. The whole point is that with the script and how it was written, everything flows into the next thing. And so the second I laid down that piece of footage and started like making it flow, I was like, well, that's the entire video. So that was a lot. That was a lot. So I don't know. That's I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really want to say about this video. But I certainly learned a lot. The motion graphics was really fun to do. I really enjoy doing motion graphics now, which is cool. I really liked the bit because one thing that's easier to do in After Effects than in Motion is write on text, because what you can do in After Effects is you can just have a thing that's like turn these text characters into shapes, and then it immediately turns them into shapes, and then you can just add effects to them, and it's great. Motion doesn't do that. Motion doesn't have that as a feature because it just can't detect it. The technology is just not there. So because I was using Motion because I refused to pay for the Adobe Suite, I wanted an effect where the text was written on, and I did this the first time with it being written onto the table after moving away the game board, when it's like, so what do all these factors mean, right? Where is that? I need to find it. Because that was one of my favorite things I did. Not all spaces are equal. Accrued property value. Oh, here it is. So like I move away the Mediterranean boardwalk, right? And then it's like I move that away, and then I have it written on what do those factors mean. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's written on the table. That would have taken way too much time. But basically what I had to do, and if this doesn't make any sense, like what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, that's okay. But basically what I did is I created an image mask, and an image mask is basically something that it's sort of like, since a lot of people in my audience are video game people, it's sort of like a hitbox is the best way to explain it. So a mask is like a hitbox, and it's basically saying, okay, then if the hitbox is covered, so if we turn the hitbox on, then anything underneath that hitbox will be shown. So it's sort of like if you get, instead of talking about the object itself, we just use hitboxes to determine when things collide, right? That's how it works in video games. So same thing with masks in image editing or in video or motion graphics, where a mask's purpose is basically to say, we're going to ignore the main thing, the main shape or the main whatever, and we're just going to focus on the mask. And what's on the mask will either be shown or not shown, and then what isn't in the mask will be shown. So it's sort of just like a filter. So basically what I did is I made a mask, and I made the mask match the exact shape and text of the characters, right? But and then I had the mask write itself on, because the mask is a shape, the text isn't. So I had the mask write itself on sequentially in the way that someone would write the text, and then had it write itself, basically. So write the mask. And then as it wrote the mask, and the mask was like, oh, we have a mask, we're going to show what's underneath the mask, right? So we're going to write on the mask, and then by extension write on the letters underneath that way. So fun times. The more you know. It's a good time. So it's not perfect. Like right here, for example, if you look at the E, you can see that it's supposed to like be writing on, but it kind of leaves the two little tiny lines and it finishes them later. So it's not perfect, but it looks damn good in motion, and that's really all that matters. So that's fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about with this. I had a lot of fun with this video. I really did. So the reason why I wanted to do these reflection bits is because I kind of want to talk about what I learned, and I want to sort of chronicle, like not chronicle, I guess, but just show the evolution of what I'm doing here, because editing's just become more and more of my thing over time, and it's crazy to me to say that when I really didn't actually start editing probably until the Mario video last summer. Where before then, it was just kind of like I edited, but I didn't edit. You know what I mean? I didn't like really edit. I didn't get to that level where I'm like, this is a cool edit. So it's kind of weird that it's become that over time so quickly. So I probably will go back at some point in the near future and go back and look at some of these older videos and see what kind of stuff I did there from a writing, editing, production standpoint, and reflect on it, see what I learned then, see what I say, what I would do better now, and so on and so forth. And then I hope to do these sort of reflection videos going into the future after every video that releases on the main channel, any main scripted kind of video releases on the main channel, and it'll be a good time. The other thing was I was originally going to do this as like a Patreon thing since people back me on it for some reason. But I decided against that. So this is going to be available to everyone all at the same time. No Patreon, anything. But you can read the scripts on Patreon, and there'll be some other behind-the-scenes stuff, but not this sort of like reflection, like me actively saying something stuff. So it'll be just more like basically the thing. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but point is that here it is. Enjoy. And I'm going to go now.